Either Labor doesn't know the consequence of this legislation and are incompetent, or they do. And this is the most malicious piece of legislation that will see gas shortages, it will increase electricity prices, and it will drive up unemployment. Be very clear, this is an attack on the resources sector, a sector that currently, through royalties, through taxes and investment, is the backbone of our economic strength. It pays for our health system, it pays for much of our education system and much of our roads and infrastructure. And if Australians knew what Labor and the Greens are passing today, if they knew what the future holds for them in the very near future, they would rightly be devastated, because this legislation is selling out their future. And history has shown time and time again that price caps will only result in supply shortages, and that leads to price rises. This is economics 101, and Australians need to brace for blackouts, high prices, investment uncertainty in the months to come. It certainly won't deliver the $275 electricity cut that was promised 97 times by the Prime Minister. It will actually still mean that electricity prices will increase by 23%. It will lead to energy rationing and blackouts. This is a disgraceful betrayal of all Australians. Energy experts have already been quoted as saying that this is the single worst piece of energy policy in the world in the last 20 years. Now, the Prime Minister has had a lot to say before the election on about how, in his government, we will do things differently. And as recently as March was saying, I want proper process, I want to consult people. And yet we are seeing legislation that the Greens and the crossbench agreed to support before they'd even seen the words on the page. The unintended consequence that will arrive from passing this legislation with haste are deeply concerning, and I guarantee you we will be back to make amendments. Such market intervention will result in a permanent cap on rates of return, something that even the worst tin pot autocrats haven't imposed on their upstream resources sectors for fear of strangling investment and supply. And in Europe currently, guess whose jobs we're seeing are going? It's manufacturing jobs. Because there is not a treasure in the land who will choose to supply gas to manufacturers over households to cook and heat and live their lives. So to all the manufacturing companies who are greeting this legislation with joy, be very, very afraid, because you will not be the top of the Treasurer's Christmas list when it comes to allocating gas. We know that the answer to reducing the cost of energy, the cost of gas, is more supply. We are a nation blessed with resources. There is no industry support for this legislation. Labor has ignored all expert advice. Regional towns like Roma and Miles, who have prospered due to gas industry, the agricultural people in that region who've prospered due to more jobs and support to stay on their farms, those regional jobs are threatened. Family businesses are at risk. Labor does not care about these communities. And this legislation has run an icy finger down the spine for every project in this country, every well-paid job, every GST and tax dollar that currently goes to supporting health and education and infrastructure in this nation. Now, Labor's modelling shows that electricity prices will go up next year, 23%. There will be no reduction of $275 as promised, 97 times. And the retailers, which will not be included in the mandatory code of conduct, can still game the market, the spot market, with high prices. Credit Suisse has warned gas price fixing will increase the risk of blackouts as early as 2023 Now, we've heard several times about this all being the fault of the war in Ukraine. This is an absolutely outrageous conclusion to draw. Our energy market and the European energy market are literally thousands of miles apart. You might also be interested to know, the Greens, that the international spot price is today $50. The Wallumbilla price is $13.90. We are not linked markets. You have to stop repeating that lie. We know that price caps, price fixing and market intervention continually fail. Argentina and the United States both attempted this. Both ended up with greater reliance on overseas supply, higher prices, and finally had to incentivise energy providers, resource companies to come back to the market. Labor is at war with the resources sector. There's plummeting investment confidence due to the layering of legislation that's been brought before this House, the damaging industrial relations legislation, the EPBC projects that have been called in, the 44 gas projects being reviewed under NOPSEMA, the $10 million funding for the EDO, the new EPA. These are all things that lead to greater investment uncertainty. So Labor is promising that the lights will stay on, that the electricity prices will go down and your job will be secure and better paid. They've promised 97 times that the power price would reduce by $275 for you. So, when the lights go out, when you can't turn the gas on, when bills go up, when your job comes under threat and unemployment rises, you know who to blame. These are the inevitable outcomes that Labor is not being honest with Australia about.